Have you ever wondered if it was time to give up on your dreams? Perhaps you have a knack for portraiture in the medium of belly button lint. You've always wanted to share this art with the rest of the world, but you're afraid they'd call you weird. Or maybe your passion lies in producing a hip-hop album where every song samples one of the 42 species of bird of paradise from Papua New Guinea. But whenever you show it to someone, they just don't get it. Or maybe, just maybe, you always had the intention to start an off-grid homestead, but every bit of information you could find online had you believing that it was either too hard, too expensive, too dangerous, or too illegal. And then you just give up on it. Well, I have a story about giving up on your dreams, so let's talk about it. Many years ago, when Cari and I were but a young couple in love, we were gifted tickets to one of the first tapings of the show The X Factor. So we got all dressed up and headed to LA for a night on the town. There were thousands of people there, and some of the acts nailed their performances, and, well, the others, I guess you could say, we had the opportunity to see what it was like for Simon Cowell to remove dreams from hearts in living color. But there was one act that stood out to me. She was a lovely gal, late 20s, early 30s, a little older than the other contestants who were performing, but still brimming with life and a crocodile smile from ear to ear. She marched herself triumphantly up to the microphone. She and the judges chatted about her experience and how she had only really performed at a couple of open mic nights. She made a little joke about the size of the crowd being much bigger than she was used to. They all laughed because she was a charmer. She was meant to be on that stage. And then Simon jumped on the back of the big old elephant in the room and asked, "Aren't you a little old to be pursuing this dream when you don't have really any experience to speak of?" The singer, obviously frazzled, leaned into the mic and with cracking voice, she said, "It's never too late to give up on your dreams." The crowd all burst into laughter, and the judges were like whispering to themselves, totally shocked by her answer, but also wondering whether or not they had misheard her. The singer, she just stuck to her guns, as if she had practiced that line in the mirror 300 or 400 times in the days leading up to this performance. Simon shook his head and said, "Go on then, let's see what you got." She proceeded to sing an Adele song in a way that I can only describe as being like a classically trained thespian, method acting as a dying cat. It was truly something to behold. But you see, that detail is inconsequential to our story, because the profundity of the statement she had made at the beginning of that performance was not lost on me, and it stuck with me right here, even until today. But as an aside, Simon did tell her that maybe it was time to give up on that dream. And maybe he was right. A few years and a couple of kids later, Cari and I were sitting in our tiny little apartment, disappointed with what life had become. We'd always been big dreamers. We had big plans. We were going to be successful. We were going to have all the things that we wanted, and our kids were going to have all of the things that we didn't have in our own childhoods. What we had been capable of providing for them was, by every measure, less. Now, most of you have heard the story of how we found our land. We didn't have the money for the down payment, so we had a yard sale, came up with the $300 to get it, and then 34 days later, with almost no money left, no experience, and what most people we told about this adventure would consider to be no sense, we left it all behind and arrived on our completely undeveloped land. But what most of you don't know is that the lovely and talented Cari had a film degree. And I always planned on telling our story and showing other people what it was like to live this kind of lifestyle through videos and pictures and blog posts on social media, documenting every little step of the way. And when people would ask me, what were you going to do for money? I'd say, we were going to live our life for a living. Sounds good, huh? When we could, we would make silly videos or educational videos showing people what we had learned that week. We made some amazing friends through that process and even managed to build a very modest following. But making a living, we were not. Some days we would sit outside and just watch nature happen, and it was amazing. And then other days we're like sitting behind a full-size oak desk trying to shove it through a swamp. And after years of trying and failing and trying and failing, and then having a third daughter, and then trying some more and failing, and then trying for a son and ending up having twin boys, I knew something had to change. And the biggest thing that had to change was the dream of living our life for a living. I had an opportunity to take on a really good job back in the city we came from. And I took it. I commuted 16 hours one way. I'd stay down there for 3 weeks, come back for a week. And I did that for like 6 months until it just got too hard for us to be that far away from each other for that long. And I decided to rent a little house and bring the whole family down to live closer to me. Ironically, I moved the family down there on March 13th, 2020, the day the governor shut down the entire state to flatten the curve. My experience living the city life after 9 years of living off-grid, especially during that time, is a story for another day. But for us, it turned out that after 2 years of being there, the grass was not greener on the other side. So we decided to come back. Now, living in the city wasn't all bad. While we were there, we started a small media company. We got some camera equipment and some audio equipment and got pretty good with DaVinci Resolve for editing. And we learned a ton from making videos for other people and then managing their socials. Then when we came back out here, we put all of that to work, and it gave us something that we could do to make income remotely with the customers that we had gained from being down there. We also made the small adjustment of, instead of showing people what living this lifestyle was like, we started showing people how they could accomplish it themselves if that was what they were interested in. And then almost as if by magic, we almost immediately started blowing up. After nearly a dozen years of failing at something that we wanted to do, we were an overnight success. And now we do exactly what we set out to do all those years ago. And is it still a struggle? Absolutely. In fact, the past 3 months have been about the hardest 3 months that I can remember since being back out here. But it's a struggle of our own choosing. And now we get to actually live our life for a living in real life. The point is that it may be a fact that, like that lovely singer at the beginning of this story, it's never too late to give up on your dreams. But it is almost always too early to give up on dreaming. It's been my experience that often the difference between living the life you want and living the life you have is learning all about what you don't know about your dream, gaining just a little bit of perspective on the struggles that you've had to endure, and making small adjustments that can make this highly unlikely and improbable dream into a reality. It doesn't matter if you're the belly button lint portraiture guy, or you're the hip-hop album out of the Bird of Paradise mating calls guy, or you invested a ton of money in the early 2000s into kazoos because you were sure that was the future of music. Whoever you are, and whatever your dream is or was, I hope that helps get you back on the path to it. And I'll catch you in the next one.